slow down too. We're taking most for today. She's gonna be shooting at the I don't know. Right out the gate, like I'm like we're sitting here first.
We're gonna have to turn this up at some point. We got a while, so we can
to your right, please. To your left. No, your other left. You guys aren't looking the same way. I don't think that's going to work. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to the 2-seat side and the 3-seat side when I'm pointing things out to you guys. Shapes with these straight angles and edges. This is actually a form of granite that's native to the mountain called Pike's Peak granite. It's 900 million years old, made of mica, feldspar, and quartz. And it's broken into these shapes that you're seeing through a natural process of erosion called ice wedging. And that's just when water seeps into the cracks in the rocks, and then it freezes and expands and breaks the rocks into these shapes that you're seeing. The higher we go, the smaller the rocks are going to get because that ice wedging process happens more and more the higher we go. moment. We're about to pass one rock formation that it's a rock that landed in the shape of a diamond, just like on a playing card. So we call it Diamond Rock. We're about to see it in just a moment on the two-seat side, just after a big boulder. We're passing that boulder right now. Just after the boulder on the two-seat side, you're going to see Diamond Rock. To the person sitting across from you. We're about to go up our first 25% grade climb, and if you fall in their lap, it's a little less awkward if you at least know their name. grade climb means that for every 100 feet of forward motion, we're gaining 25 feet in elevation. We call this hill that we're about to go up Son of a Gun Hill because back in the day when we had the steam locomotives, the firemen would shovel coal as hard as they could to get to the top of the hill. When they were done, they'd look back and say, boy, that hill was a real son of a gun, or something like that. So some people ask if we ever get rocks on the tracks. Well, we do. In fact, just the other day, we had a pretty big rock on the tracks. Luckily, I was here and Sue and Keith were able to help me. We pushed it off onto the two-seat side and were able to prop it up on 3 smaller rocks. We're about to pass it in just a minute on the two-seat side, so we'll see if it looks like it's going to hold. Today. We call this prop rock. There was a little one-room cabin here off the 3-seat side that was a popular stop for hikers. Eventually it expanded to become a hotel with 22 guest rooms, a banquet hall, a post office, a railroad station, and believe it or not, even a one-lane bowling alley. It was open for 34 years until 1926 when there was a mysterious fire that burned it down. The only thing that remains now is a sign that says Halfway House Hotel, coming up on your 3-seat side in just a moment.
I've seen a couple of that.
This is where the Halfway House Hotel was.
Not a very big hotel.
And coming up on the 3-seat side, we're about to pass our first man-made waterfall called Pike Falls. For obvious reasons, it's coming out of a pipe, although today it's more of a trickle. With water coming out of it, Pike's Peak is actually home to one of the oldest hydroelectric plants west of the Mississippi. It actually powers 300 Manitou Springs. And coming up on the 3-seat side, you're going to see a white frame building. That's actually the old caretaker's home. It's made from parts of the Halfway House Hotel. And if you look straight back after we pass it, you're going to see an old stone building. That's the old hydroelectric plant from 1925. You're now entering the town of Ruxton Park, population 0. No one lives in the caretaker's home anymore. Moved out a couple of years ago. And also looking off the 3-seat side, you'll notice a dirt road. That's actually the caretaker's private drive. It's a 60-mile dirt road that wraps around all the reservoirs on the mountain.
You'll be on the left platform, the left platform. Copy, the left platform, thank you. No problem.
It's 1.4 million acres. Did I say that right? Yeah. And you could fit the entire state of Delaware in the Pike National Forest. There's a variety of wildlife here. We've got mountain lion, bobcat, moose, golden eagle, rabbits, foxes, coyotes, porcupines, skunk, mule deer, black bear, and even Sasquatch. And on higher up the mountain, we've got bighorn sheep, elk, Arctic raven, and marmots. Also, depending on their hydration level, if you were to sniff them, you would get a whiff of either vanilla or butterscotch. And taking a look over on the three-seat side, these lighter colored trees are aspens. Aspen trees grow in groves, and they're actually one of the largest land organisms on Earth because they share one common root system. So you might think you're passing a whole bunch of trees, but really it's just basically one plant. Aspen trees also have a white powder on them. If you were to rub it all over yourself, you might get slight sun protection. It's got an SPF of about 2, and it also has pain relieving properties. So take 2 Aspen and call me in the morning. If you come back to see us in mid-September, that's a great time to see the aspen leaves changing in beautiful, brilliant golds and oranges. Wisconsin? No? Oh, welcome. Nice to see you. You'll be happy to know our founder, Zalman Simmons, was from Kenosha, Wisconsin. He came here in the 1880s on a trip up Pike's Peak on a burro. It took him 3 days. He was inspecting telegraph line insulators. He thought it was the most uncivilized trip he'd ever taken, so he went back to Wisconsin, raised $1.5 million, and came back and had the COG built. Now, the Simmons family owned the COG Railway until 1926, when they sold it to Spencer Penrose, the owner of the Broadmoor. You might know the name Simmons from the Simmons Beauty Rest Mattress Company. He had a thing for comfort. Elevation 10,012. So in 1806, there was an Army lieutenant from New Jersey named Zebulon Montgomery Pike. He came here with his men to explore the southern border of the Louisiana Purchase. And if you remember from high school, that was the land deal in between Thomas Jefferson and Napoleon Bonaparte that nearly doubled the size of our country. So Pike and his men attempted to summit Pike's Peak, Unfortunately, they came at the wrong time of year and didn't have the right supplies, so you could say Pike never reached his peak. He didn't actually name the mountain after himself, but in his journals he called it the Grand Peak, and he estimated its height to be 18,000 feet. Pike's Peak isn't the only name that this mountain has had over the years. Prior to Pike's Peak, it was called James Peak after mountaineer and botanist Edwin James. 100 years before that, Spanish conquistadors called it El Capitan, or the leader. And about 600 years earlier than that, the native Ute tribe was here. They called it Taba, or Sun Mountain. Going back even further, the Clovis people were here, but they predated written language by about 11,000 years, so we're not sure what they called it.
They just called it Pug.
Folks, it's gonna get chillier the higher we go here. So some of you might want to check your windows and just be aware of the passengers that are sitting behind you. That cold air blows right onto them. Thank you.
Yeah, as we get higher, it is going to be getting a lot windier and colder, so you might want to think about shutting those windows. And looking out on the three-seat side, through the trees, you might notice a large outcropping of granite. We refer to that as the lion's den, because sometimes park rangers will see mountain lions sunning themselves on it. And that's actually as far as the Pike expedition made it. Massachusetts who came up to Pikes Peak on a carriage ride. And she was so inspired by what she saw that she went back to her hotel room in Colorado Springs and wrote a poem about it. That poem was later set to the tune of a song called Materna, and it became a runner-up for our national anthem. You may know it. It's called America the Beautiful. And looking out here on your three-seat side, you can see what Catherine Lee Bates was so inspired by. We call this Inspiration Point. In the song, the Purple Mountain's Majesties comes from the sunlight shining on the red rocks. So why do we call Well, just like any normal train, any train track, it's got two running rails that are 4 feet 8.5 inches apart. But unlike a normal train track, we have a rack rail with teeth running down the middle of it. Those teeth interlock with some cog wheels that are underneath the train, and that's what helps us to be able to climb a steeper grade than a normal train could. A normal train can only climb about 4% grade, while we can do 25%. There are two other active cog railroads in the U.S. right now. One is in New Hampshire, Mount Washington, and the other one goes down a mine in Quincy, Michigan. But the Pikes Peak COG is the longest and the highest, and therefore the best. The Broadmoor, Manitou, and Pikes Peak COG Railway.
Your mom would never do this.
And looking out the three-seat side, you can see Lake Moraine. It's actually the only natural occurring lake on the mountain. It was formed by a glacier after the last ice age.
That real blue one?
Wendy, we have someone that passed out up here.
Maybe just pump it in the air to can.
I would not be able to do it in a car.
People or machinery or anything. She don't trust them. Not able to breathe.
Alright guys, just a little effects of the altitude. Luckily we have an EMT on board, so she's in good hands.
When did you need me to call and have the EMTs meet us at the platform?
Alright, so you might notice a lack of trees the higher we go. We're now at about 11,500 feet. We call this tree line. Because of the temperatures and the wind and the soil quality, it's just hard for anything to grow up here.
EMT on board with us from the summit.
So if you look across the way, you're going to see Mount Almagre, and that gives you a pretty good view of what the tree line looks like. We call that Calendar Mountain because it's 12,365 feet high. We're now entering the subalpine, alpine, and Arctic climate zones.
Section 18, jogging.
Please do not, I repeat, do not put your hands out the window and touch that ice. It has the consistency of razor blades and concrete. They will not feel good on your fingers. There's record high winds here. They can reach sometimes over 100 miles per hour. And looking out on the two-seat side, you'll see the old section crew house. Showing many years ago, The section foreman was a man named Bruce Taggart. He lived in that house with his wife, and they actually had a baby in that house. His name was Johnny Taggart. Later on, Johnny came to work for the COG, and he was actually the last person to drive a steam locomotive up to the top of Pikes Peak in 1958. So now that we're getting closer to the summit, I want to go over a few rules. This train will leave the summit promptly at 4 o'clock. So it'd be a good idea for everyone to set your alarm on your phones or your watch. We will not wait for you. We are leaving exactly at 4 o'clock from the summit. There is a visitor center up there that has everything that you need. It's got restrooms, a gift shop, a cafe where you can get those famous donuts, a little museum. You will not be able to bring any food or drink back on this train. If I can have everyone's attention, please, this is important. You will not be able to bring any food or drink back on this train, and there are no trash cans on the platform because animals would get into them. So just one reminder, 4 o'clock is the time that we are leaving the summit. At about 10 minutes before, at 3:50, 3 horn blasts our engineer's gonna blast the horn 3 times, and we're gonna give a reminder in the visitor center. But everyone needs to be back at the train in their seat by 4 o'clock, or we will be leaving without you. Also, just to let everyone know, it is really cold and windy up at the top. The train will remain open. You do not have to leave the train if you don't want to. You can stay here and you can come back in the train at any time. But if you're not here by 4 o'clock, what do I call you? I call you a hiker. So you'll notice as you look around, there's really no vegetation other than this very short grass here, and that's the Arctic tundra. It grows extremely slowly. It takes about 100 years for it to spread just 1 inch. A spot that we call the saddle. If you look to the east out of the 2-seat side, you can see Colorado Springs and the Black Forest. And if you look all the way back on a clear day, you can see Kansas. And off the 3-seat side, on a clear day, you can see the Continental Divide. That's actually the backbone of the Americas. It runs from northern Alaska through Canada, U.S., Mexico, Central America, the Andes, and it ends in Argentina all the way down at the bottom tip of South America.
There's also an eastern continental divide. Oh,
I'll sound the horn 3 times. That's your cue to get your butt back to the train. And looking off the 3-seat side now, you can see the Pikes Peak Highway. It's a 19-mile road that goes up to the top of Pikes Peak with lots of hairpin turns. If you're brave enough, you can drive up to Pikes Peak. Every year, the Pikes Peak Hill Climb is held there. It's one of the oldest auto races in the U.S. The current record holder is French racer. Once again, please wait until the train comes to a complete stop and you hear that horn blast before you get up. And just one more reminder, we're going to be leaving right at 4 o'clock sharp. Welcome to America's favorite mountain.
We'll take a couple of pictures.
Yeah, pretty much straight west. Maybe not straight west. Northwest. Yeah, a little north.
Yeah, snow definitely hurt.
Well, we're trying to.
I know. Watch out, Ray.
Just quick pilot. Yeah, we're getting time to what you do.
Anybody see any snow?
Oh, the sun looks so much better than this.
stairs or an elevator? People walked out there.
அப்போ